I want to start with a confession. For the first decade of my investing life, I watched people earn more than I did and end up with less. I watched people receive raises, bonuses, windfalls, and somehow arrive at 40 with nothing to show for it. Not because they were irresponsible, not because they were unlucky, but because of something quieter and more insidious than either of those explanations. They had habits, not dramatic habits, not the habits of gamblers or reckless spenders. Ordinary, completely normalized, socially acceptable habits that were bleeding them dry so slowly and so consistently that they never noticed the wound until the damage was already done. And here is the thing about bad money habits that nobody warns you about. They do not feel bad. They feel normal. They feel like just how life works. They feel like what everyone around you is doing. And that feeling, that comfortable, unchallenged feeling of normalcy, is precisely what makes them so dangerous. Today, I want to walk you through 9 of them. The 9 habits that I have watched destroy more financial potential than any market crash, any bad investment, any stroke of bad luck ever could, because bad luck is occasional. Habits are daily, and daily, compounded across decades, is where financial lives are made or destroyed. Let us begin. Habit 1, paying yourself last. Here is how most people handle money. The paycheck lands, the rent goes out, the car payment goes out, the subscriptions charge automatically, the phone bill is paid, the social plans get funded, the week's groceries get bought, and then at the end of the month, whatever survives all of that, if anything survives, gets called savings. Does this sound familiar? This is called paying yourself last. And it is the single most common financial habit among people who will reach retirement with nothing despite earning a lifetime of reasonable income. The problem is not the intention. The intention is fine. You are being responsible. You are honoring your obligations. The problem is the sequence. When saving happens after spending, saving will always be what spending leaves behind. And spending, in a world engineered at every level to make parting with money as frictionless and as pleasurable as possible, will always find a way to leave very little behind. The solution is not complicated. It is not sophisticated. It does not require a financial degree to understand. Flip the sequence. The moment your income arrives, before a single bill is paid, before a single discretionary decision is made, 10% minimum moves automatically into a savings account. Gone, not visible, not available, not tempting. Treat it like a bill, because it is the most important bill you will ever pay. The bill to your future self. The bill that, unlike every other bill you pay, returns to you compounded. When you pay yourself first, something remarkable happens. The spending that follows adjusts to what remains, not because you are depriving yourself, because the human brain is far more adaptable to available resources than we give it credit for. You spend what is there. When less is there, you spend less, and you barely notice the difference. But your savings account notices, and over 20 years, it notices enormously. Habit 2. Getting comfortable with bad debt. I want to say something about debt that the financial industry does not want you to hear. Debt has been normalized in a way that should frighten every person carrying it. People are using debt to buy groceries, to buy birthday presents, to buy clothes they will wear twice and forget, to fund weekends they will barely remember. The credit card has become not a tool of financial convenience, but the primary mechanism through which people fund a lifestyle that their income cannot actually support. And it feels fine, because everyone is doing it. Because the minimum payment is manageable, because the rewards points are accumulating, and there is a vague sense that the system is working in your favor. It is not working in your favor. The average credit card interest rate is 22%. 22% annually on whatever balance you carry. The cash back, the travel miles, the rewards points, they are worth between 1 and 3% of your spending. You are paying 22 to receive 3. The credit card company designed this arithmetic deliberately. They are not offering you rewards because they are generous. They are offering you rewards because the rewards are cheaper than the interest you will pay if you carry a balance. They are profitable when you are bad with money. My rule is simple, and I apply it without exception. If I cannot pay for something in cash, meaning if the money is not sitting in my account right now, I cannot afford it. The credit card is not a tool that makes unaffordable things affordable. It is a tool that makes unaffordable things feel affordable in this moment while making them genuinely more expensive in every moment that follows. Break the comfort with bad debt. It is not normal. It is normalized. Those are very different things. Habit 3, having no financial buffer. Let me describe something that happens to millions of people every single year. The car breaks down, the medical bill arrives, the boiler stops working, the job becomes uncertain. Something goes wrong, as something always eventually goes wrong, and there is no money set aside to absorb it. So what happens? The payday loan, the credit card, the call to a family member, the desperate scramble to cover an emergency through the most expensive financial mechanisms available. each of which makes the next emergency harder to absorb because each of which leaves the person financially weaker than before. This is the emergency cascade. And it is the mechanism through which people who are trying to build financial stability get knocked back to the starting line before the building can begin. The solution is what I call the financial buffer. 6 months of essential living expenses sitting in a separate savings account, not touched for anything except a genuine emergency. This is not an investment. It is not earning you extraordinary returns. It is doing something far more valuable than extraordinary returns in the early stages of financial rebuilding. It is buying you cognitive freedom. The research is clear and compelling. Financial stress consumes mental bandwidth. The constant low-level anxiety of not knowing whether you can absorb the next unexpected expense drains the cognitive capacity available for long-term planning, for rational decision-making, for the deliberate and forward-looking thinking that building wealth requires. When the buffer exists, a car repair is an inconvenience. When it does not exist, a car repair is a crisis. And crises do not produce good financial decisions. They produce desperate ones. Build the buffer before you invest a dollar. It is the foundation without which everything else is structurally unstable. Habit 4, not knowing your numbers. I want to ask you a question. Without looking at your phone, without checking an app, without pausing to calculate, what did you spend last month? Not roughly, specifically. What came in and what went out and what was the difference? Most people cannot answer this question, not because they are careless or unintelligent, because they have never made knowing the answer a habit. Money arrives and money leaves, and the details of the transaction are experienced but not examined. And here is the consequence of that. There is a phenomenon called lifestyle inflation. As income rises, spending rises proportionally, sometimes faster than proportionally. The raise arrives, and within 6 months, the raise has been absorbed entirely by a larger apartment, a newer car, more frequent dining out, the gentle upward creep of every spending category that occurs when more money is present to be spent. The person who does not know their numbers cannot see this happening. They are experiencing it. They are living it, but they cannot measure it. And what cannot be measured cannot be managed. Wealthy people, genuinely structurally wealthy people rather than high earners with high spending, share a specific habit. They know their numbers. Not approximately, precisely. They know what comes in. They know what goes out. They know their assets and their liabilities. They know the gap between where they are and where they are building toward. And they have a specific, concrete, step-by-step plan that connects those 2 points. This is not exciting. There is nothing glamorous about knowing your numbers. But it is the difference between having a financial life and having a financial fantasy, between building deliberately toward a destination and drifting in a generally intended direction while wondering why you never seem to arrive. Write down your income. Write down your expenses. All of them. Put them in a spreadsheet or a notebook or a budgeting app and look at the reality of your financial life in black and white. The numbers, seen clearly, trigger action, because what is visible is undeniable, and what is undeniable is very difficult to continue ignoring. Habit 5, funding expensive hobbies before funding your future. Let me be direct about this one. There is nothing wrong with hobbies. There is nothing wrong with spending money on things that bring genuine enjoyment to your life. A life lived in total austerity in service of a future financial number is not the goal. The goal is a life that is genuinely satisfying both now and in the future. But there is a question worth asking honestly about the expensive hobby, the premium gym membership that gets used twice a month, the golf equipment that gets upgraded annually, the collector's item that occupies shelf space and accumulates value only in the imagination, the dining habits that quietly consume a number that would be shocking if it were written down and examined. The question is this: is this hobby funded because it brings genuine, proportionate satisfaction to your life? Or is it funded because it has always been funded, because it has become part of the infrastructure of your identity, because stopping it would require a conversation with yourself that you have been avoiding? Expensive hobbies are not bad money habits in themselves. Expensive hobbies that are consuming the resources that your financial future requires without being examined honestly against that cost, those are bad money habits. The audit is simple. Write down every discretionary expenditure in a month. Next to each one, rate the genuine satisfaction it produced on a scale of 1 to 10. Then look at where the money went relative to where the satisfaction came from. You will almost always find that the highest satisfaction expenditures are not the highest cost ones, and that the highest cost ones examined honestly are often consuming money that your future self will urgently need. Habit 6, thinking saving alone will make you wealthy. This is a habit of mind rather than a habit of behavior, and it is one of the most limiting financial beliefs a person can hold. There is a ceiling to saving, a hard, mathematical, unavoidable ceiling. You cannot save more than 100% of your income. In practice, given the non-negotiable costs of existence, you cannot save more than a fraction of it. And fractions of income, saved but not grown, produce modest accumulations rather than genuine wealth. Saving is necessary. It is the foundation. It is the precondition for everything that follows, but it is not sufficient. Here is how I want you to think about this. Your financial life has two sides, the saving side and the earning side. Most financial advice focuses almost entirely on the saving side. Cut expenses, reduce consumption, live below your means, all of which is correct and important and insufficient because the saving side has a ceiling. The earning side does not. There is no mathematical limit to how much you can earn. There is no law of nature that says your income is fixed at its current level. Every hour you invest in a skill that increases your market value, every relationship you build that creates professional opportunity, every side income stream you develop that runs alongside your primary income, these are investments in the earning side of your financial life that have no ceiling and that compound over time in ways that the saving side simply cannot replicate. The richest people I have observed are not people who found ever more creative ways to reduce their expenses. They are people who built ever more powerful engines on the income side while maintaining discipline on the spending side. You need both. But if you are only thinking about one, you have already placed an artificial limit on where you can go. Habit 7. Paying more tax than you are required to. I want to say this carefully because it is important to say precisely. Nobody should pay less tax than the law requires. Tax evasion is illegal and wrong and produces consequences that no financial benefit justifies. But paying more tax than the law requires, failing to use the legal structures and vehicles and provisions that exist specifically to reduce your tax burden, is one of the most significant and most overlooked sources of wealth erosion available to ordinary people. Taxes are the single largest expense in most people's financial lives, larger than housing, larger than food, larger than transportation, larger than any other category of expenditure. And most people approach this largest expense with the least amount of strategic thinking they apply to any significant financial category. Wealthy people do not pay less tax because they cheat. They pay less tax because they have invested in understanding the rules of the system and in structuring their financial lives in ways that legally minimize their tax burden. The retirement account is the most accessible version of this. The Roth IRA in America, the ISA in Britain, these are legal structures that shelter investment returns from taxation permanently. A dollar invested inside these structures is worth more over time than a dollar invested outside them for the simple reason that the returns compound without the annual drag of taxation. The business structure is another version. Income earned through a business entity rather than as a personal salary can, in many circumstances, be structured in ways that reduce the effective tax rate while remaining entirely within the law. You do not need to be wealthy to benefit from understanding this. You need to be willing to learn. Every dollar you pay in unnecessary tax is a dollar that the government allocates on your behalf to priorities you did not choose. Every dollar you save through legal tax efficiency is a dollar that you allocate to priorities you did choose. That is not cynicism about government. It is financial intelligence about your own resources. Habit 8, waiting for the perfect moment to invest. I have heard every version of this excuse. The market is too high right now. I will wait for a correction. I do not have enough to make it worthwhile. I need to understand it better before I start. Things are too uncertain. Once things settle down, I will begin. Things never settle down. The market is never at an obviously perfect entry point. There is never a moment when every reasonable objection to beginning has been resolved. And the person waiting for that moment will still be waiting when the compound returns that starting 10 years ago would have produced have been permanently foregone. Here is the arithmetic that should make this visceral. A person who invests $300 per month beginning at 25 at a historical average market return of 7% annually will have accumulated approximately $800,000 by 65. A person who waits until 35 to begin the same $300 per month will have accumulated approximately $400,000. The person who waited 10 years does not accumulate 10 years less. They accumulate half as much because the missing years were the early years when the compounding had the longest runway. The time you spend waiting is not neutral. It is not a pause in your financial life while conditions improve. It is compounding time that is being consumed without being invested. And compounding time, unlike money, cannot be recovered. The money sitting in your savings account beyond the emergency buffer is losing real value every year through inflation. It is not safe. It is declining. The safety of the savings account is a feeling, not a financial reality. Begin with what you have. In the imperfect conditions that are the only conditions that will ever exist. Begin. Habit 9, going it alone without a financial map. The 9th habit is the one that makes all the others worse, and it is the habit that is most directly within your control to change right now, today, with no additional resources required. It is the habit of navigating your financial life without a clear destination and without a clear route to that destination. Most people have a vague financial aspiration. They want to be comfortable. They want to retire. They want to not worry about money. These are not destinations. They are directions. And directions without specific destinations produce a lifetime of movement without arrival. Genuinely financially successful people, people who build real wealth rather than just real income, share a specific quality that I have observed consistently across decades of watching how wealth is built and how it is not. They know exactly where they are going. Not vaguely, exactly. They have a net worth target. They have a retirement date. They have a monthly savings rate. They have an investment allocation. They have a debt elimination sequence. They have a tax optimization strategy. They have a specific, concrete, written financial plan that converts the aspiration of financial security into a set of weekly and monthly actions that are either being taken or not being taken. This specificity is not the domain of the wealthy. It is available to anyone with a pen and a piece of paper and the honesty to look at their current financial position clearly. The map does not need to be perfect. It needs to exist. Because a map, even an imperfect one, is the difference between knowing which direction you are walking and discovering only at the end that you walked the wrong way. Now let me bring these 9 habits together and tell you something about how they interact. These habits do not operate independently. They reinforce each other. They create a system. The person who pays themselves last has nothing saved. The person with nothing saved has no buffer. The person with no buffer is always one emergency away from bad debt. The person in bad debt is paying 22% interest on yesterday's spending instead of investing in tomorrow's security. The person not investing is losing real value to inflation on every dollar they manage to save. The person paying too much in tax is losing the largest single category of their income to a burden that could legally be reduced. The person without a financial map has no mechanism to see that all of this is happening simultaneously in the quiet background of a life that feels perfectly normal. This is the system of financial stagnation. Each habit supports the others. Each one makes the others harder to break. But the reverse is also true. These habits break in systems too. The person who pays themselves first immediately has a buffer forming. The buffer eliminates the emergency cascade and the bad debt it produces. The elimination of bad debt frees up the interest payments for investment. The investment, structured inside tax-efficient vehicles, compounds without the drag of annual taxation. The financial map makes all of this visible and accountable and connected to a specific destination. You do not need to break all 9 habits simultaneously. You need to break the first one and let the momentum of the system carry you forward. Pay yourself first, tonight, before you have thought about it long enough to find a reason to delay. Set up the automatic transfer. 10% tomorrow, the day after at the latest. And then do the one thing that makes all the others possible. Write down your numbers, all of them: income, expenses, debt, savings, net worth, in black and white, where you are, where you want to be, and the gap between them that your new habits are going to close. You will not close it this month. You will not close it this year. But you will have done the thing that changes the trajectory, the thing that compounded across the decades of your financial life produces an outcome that looks nothing like the outcome your current habits are building toward. The habits that are keeping you poor are not exotic. They are not unusual. They are not the result of any particular failure of character or intelligence or ambition. They are just habits. And habits, once seen clearly and challenged directly and replaced deliberately, are the most changeable thing about a human life. Start with one. Start today. That is all. Thanks for watching.